My name is Bill Long, the President and Chief Operating Officer for the Automotive Aftermarket Suppliers Association. And I'd like to genuinely welcome all of you here this morning. We very much appreciate the media's support of AASA and all that you do. I know that there's a thousand things on your plate and opportunities for where you could be this morning, but genuinely we thank you for your support, not only this morning, but throughout the year. And I'd also like to thank our AASA members that have turned out for the briefing this morning. As you know, this is our traditional media briefing. Typically, we've held these events on a Monday morning, but because of some of the changes, we have some strong recommendations to move it to a Tuesday that would allow more media to participate. I'd like to begin perhaps with a reminder that AASA is the light vehicle aftermarket division of MEMA. And as many of you may know, that MEMA is the Motor Equipment Manufacturers Association celebrating its 110th anniversary this year. MEMA comprises not only AASA, but three other divisions that represent the supplier community across a broad spectrum, which include the MIRA, the Motor and Equipment Remanufacturers Association. And with us this morning is John Shalafo. John serves as the President and Chief Operating Officer for MIRA. John, thanks for being here this morning. Also within the umbrella of divisions is HDMA, the Heavy Duty Manufacturers Association, and OESA, the Original Equipment Suppliers Association. I'd like to take a minute. I know many of you know Steve Hanshu, but Steve Hanshu is with us. He's the President and CEO of MEMA. So, Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, all.
This year, perhaps to start, we are here at AAPEX, and you may remember, take you back to the end of the show last year, there was a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and momentum at the end of last year's show. Maybe you remember it, maybe you felt it. And this year is no exception. Maybe you've already found and felt the mood that has been brewing from the reception last night. We had a record sellout of exhibitors last year, and this year is no exception. We have over 2,338 exhibitors here at AAPEX, which is, again, a new track record. And buyers, the favored, targeted buyer numbers that we all covet is also up. We have an increase of about 1,640 buyer attendees over last year's period. As you know, as the industry evolves and as AAPEX and continues to gain greater relevance in the industry, both MEMA, the co-owner of AAPEX, along with our partner, the Auto Care Association, have made a number of changes in AAPEX to, again, drive greater relevance and value of the show. Many of them you may be familiar with. The educational seminars that AAPEX has is up now over 50 seminars that we're holding throughout the event. I think last year's number was somewhere in the area of 39, so a nice increase in the quality of the content of those seminars is also very, very high. A number of exhibitors are using in-booth demonstrations for repair professionals that we've promoted heavily throughout the AAPEX season, and as a result of not only the educational seminars but also the in-booth training that's happening, the number of repair professionals that have registered to attend the show is also up. That number is an increase at the moment of about 12.3%, 12.37 to be exact. You've already heard about the new general session and the change that we've had. We've announced Stephen Forbes, as you've seen, is going to be the keynote speaker. And our general session allows all attendees to come together and be part of the dialogue. We're expecting some 3,000 people to be in attendance at that event, and we look for that general session to continue to add great value to the overall event as we celebrate the automotive industry and particularly the aftermarket. You know, when we talk about the industry and the things that we've seen in trends, it's not a stretch to say that we're in the midst of an automotive renaissance. When you think of the word renaissance, it suggests that the definition suggests that a renaissance is a renewal or a vigor of life, a renewal of life. And certainly there are signs throughout the automotive industry that point to that and would substantiate that. AASA does a barometer, supplier barometer quarterly that surveys our members' trends for sales and expectations for the coming quarter. And we have seen a tremendous increase in lift of suppliers that have reported strong to significantly strong sales both in Q1 and Q2 of 2014, and although it's tailed off slightly in the third quarter, still remains strong for the year. All of those quarters are greater than what was the last peak, which was the first quarter of 2012. So strong renewal, perhaps revival and vigor. Also, we survey suppliers' expectations for future sales and what their optimism is for the future. And each quarter this year has been significantly more optimistic about future sales and what they're seeing for orders on hand and those that are coming. So that's very positive. We also see the underlying foundation of our business to be very strong. If you look at those foundational pillars and indicators, certainly we see miles driven showing increases. We see gas prices that are favorable to our industry. The vehicle park is growing, 252 million vehicles in 2013, growing over the next 3 or 4 years to 257 million. Vehicle age continues to increase. We all know the numbers at 11.4 years and continues to show strong foundational growth. And the definition of a revival also suggests it marks the time from the medieval world to the new world. And we could certainly point to a number of indicators that would suggest that we might look back on this day and say that we are clearly in a transition from the medieval automotive world to the future world. If you look at technology, everything from telematics to V2V, 3D printing, disruptive technology that's in the industry, certainly there are a lot of changes that we'll look back on and say this perhaps was the beginning of that transition from what we might call the medieval world. Certainly with any transition comes change and uncertainty as well as opportunity. I'd like to touch on 3 areas that we might identify as creating some uncertainty for suppliers in the automotive industry going forward. And we believe that with that uncertainty creates some opportunity. The first is the uncertainty that exists in the dynamics impacting the do-it-for-me market. We've seen the trend for many years about the transition of DIY to DIFM. Certainly there are a number of indicators that point to that trend. Certainly an aging motoring public, technology and the ability to work on your own automobile. But there's also other underlying dynamics within that industry that AASA is undertaking a new landmark study which will be called Do It For Me Outlook 2025 that will look at the trends that exist and are emerging in that area. Certainly we've seen the impact, some of the signs of what those trends might look like. They certainly include the term of the impact of quality parts lasting longer, new technologies, longer service intervals, which means less traffic, perhaps, and fewer visits to the service bays. We've seen those trends in everything from lengthening oil change replacement cycles and a number of the transitions of parts that are lasting longer, which simply means less traffic through the service bays, which are impacting independent service providers' margin. We also see the impact of e-tailing and pricing transparency and what that impact may mean also to margins within the DIFM space. So again, AASA is working with the firm Strategy & formerly known as Booz & Company, to create a landmark study, again, which will be out in the first quarter of 2015. And we will unveil that study at our Vision Conference to those attendees. The other area that creates some uncertainty, and we've talked about it before quite often, is that around the practice of extended payment terms. Certainly we can talk about the increase or risk that exists to the industry with the potential of increased interest rates. I think we can probably put a bow around that discussion of not if interest rates will go up, but when, and the impact that that will have not only on suppliers, but also the entire distribution channel. But the area of uncertainty is not as much around the increase in that practice and the risk that it extends, but also the impact that it's had on inventory in the field. Factoring has in part enabled more inventory to be placed at store level. And we've estimated that there is perhaps somewhere in the neighborhood of $16 to $20 billion of redundant and excess inventory in the field that has been created, again, in part by the practice of extended terms. And AASA is undertaking an initiative to help create dialogue around the inventory that exists in the field and how we might engage the industry and create some change that brings that back under control, if you will, and help diffuse some of the uncertainty and risks that we see going forward. The last one certainly is the speed and the impact of disruptive technology. We talked about this earlier, everything from 3D printing and telematics and so forth. We have been working with the AASA Automotive Technology Council that addresses these emerging forms of disruptive technology, and also within the Marketing Executive Council. Both of those events serve as, again, a dialogue for discussion and industry change. I'll tell you that at the recent Technology Council, we had a service provider, well-respected and well-known in the industry, Terry Winter, when asked from the podium whether he viewed telematics and some of the changes that we're seeing in the industry as an opportunity or a threat. Terry's response was, "It's the best thing that's happened to my business in our industry." It's allowed a greater dialogue between he and his customer as those messages he gets from the vehicles. His customers call him and bring those opportunities to have their vehicles serviced and repaired or maintained directly with him, instead of creating the need for driving traffic in for a vehicle safety inspection and trying to find failures and potential risks to the industry in that format. Certainly, not only is there some of those uncertainties, but there are tremendous opportunities we see in the aftermarket. Clearly, the opportunity of expansion in global markets. We've talked about in the past, and I know you've seen the numbers, global production is expected to increase some 21 million vehicles by 2021. And by the same year, China is expected to account for more than 30% of all light vehicle sales. You may be familiar that AASA has a forum called the China Aftermarket Forum that has been in existence for over 10 years that serves the needs of North American suppliers that have manufacturing and distribution footprints in China. The China Aftermarket Forum operates 4 times a year in Shanghai. And at our upcoming meeting in December, we will be entertaining the Transportation of Ministry, China's Transportation of Ministry, that will be on hand as we promote an open aftermarket architecture in China and the values that will bring not only to the Chinese market but also to North American suppliers. In that same vein of taking advantage of international markets, the Overseas Automotive Council, part of AASA, is celebrating an anniversary. It was formed in the early 1920s, and it also serves as a platform to enable aftermarket supplier members to take advantage of the emerging growing markets around the country, or around the globe. OAC will be celebrating an event this evening at Del Toro, our annual event. Some 500 to 600 members will be in attendance, and we invite those of you that can join us to please do so. And I would also like to just make one or two other quick comments about two other initiatives of opportunity that we see in the industry. One is in the area of preventable warranty. You may remember that at this time last year, we announced the creation of a task force within AASA to bring together service providers in conjunction with ASA, and we formed a group to address what we've identified as some $3.9 billion in preventable warranty opportunity for suppliers. In conjunction with that, we also promote a program called Know Your Parts. There is a booth within the show, booth number 341. And the Know Your Parts campaign was created to help create an awareness of differentiation between full-service suppliers and those of lower quality, low-cost country products. It helps educate the repair professional about the value and differentiation of all the parts and all the value that goes into the box beyond perhaps just the features and benefits of the product itself. And then of all the things that we've talked about today, perhaps some of the most important work we do on behalf of members is the work that we do for suppliers in Washington, D.C. I'd like to take a moment to introduce Ann Wilson, who is our Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, who is with us today. This year, representatives of AASA and MEMA have influenced change in important brake friction products containing asbestos, attacked counterfeiting, helped educate China's government officials about promoting policies to foster an open aftermarket, have driven industry collaboration with EPA to develop a memorandum of understanding for consistent copper brake abatement, and much more. I ask you to add to your calendar a save the date for MEMA's 2015 Legislative Summit, slated for April 15th and 16th in Washington, D.C., and more information about that will be available in the Member Center. In closing, I'd just like to recap, as we all have seen, that the automotive supplier is being impacted by many market shifts, rapid and accelerating technology developments, demographical changes, globalization, and more. And it's clear that a 10,000-foot view of these issues is no longer sufficient for suppliers. Suppliers need a 360-degree view of the issues that are going on around them. And the 360-degree view is the theme that we will use at AASA's 2015 Vision Conference at the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte in March. Some of the topics that we'll cover at that event will certainly focus on a 360-degree view of technology. And we'll actually have live demonstrations of some of the new technology in the aftermarket, particularly as it relates to telematics. We'll take a 360-degree view with a comprehensive overview of AASA's groundbreaking study that we talked about, DIFM Outlook 2025. And we'll also have a firsthand account of international opportunities, including the growth in China, and a closer look at home at opportunities that exist across our border in Mexico. So we expect and continue to see suppliers take advantage of the opportunities that exist within the industry, both globally and here at home. The key takeaway that members have voiced with us and we have shared with the industry is is the untapped opportunity of collaboration that exists between suppliers and channel partners. That collaboration is fostering itself in dialogue all the way through the supply chain, top to top, to help attack the issues of preventable warranty, to help reduce the inventory that exists and diffuse some of the risk associated with extended terms. And collaboration also helps suppliers to differentiate themselves and their value and services against others to drive real long-term sustainable value as part of the discussion. So before I open it up for questions, I'd like to invite Carol Parada. Carol is the chairperson for AASA's OAC Council, who has a very special announcement for us this morning. Carol?
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here to let you know, well, sadly, we have a memory that we had one of our very dear friends, Jeremy Denton, passed away just a year ago at this time last year at the show. So today, on behalf of the OAC, I'm happy to announce that the OAC has established a scholarship fund through the University of the Aftermarket Foundation in memory of the late Jeremy Denton, who was the AASA Vice President and OAC Executive Director, who died last year on November 5th. The OAC has initiated a memorial fund with a grant of $36,000. The Jeremy Denton Memorial Scholarship Fund will present two $1,000 annual scholarships designated for one male and one female student pursuing careers in the automotive aftermarket industry. Jeremy, as many of you may have known him, was an exemplary employee and a valued asset to our associations from 2005 until the sudden onset of his illness in 2011. These scholarships are truly fitting memorial to Jeremy's passion for the aftermarket and his boundless enthusiasm for its future. We are establishing this scholarship as a lasting testament of Jeremy's character and contributions to our organization and the industry. We invite others in the industry who had the pleasure of knowing and working with Jeremy to consider making a contribution to remember him in this way. A little history about Jeremy. He joined the MEMA in 2005 as a director, program member services, and OAC executive director. In addition, he directed the activities of the Filter Manufacturers Council, the Brake Manufacturers Council, and also served as staff executive of the AASA China Aftermarket Forum. In 2010, Jeremy was promoted to the AASA Vice President of Programs and Member Services. His responsibilities included membership recruitment and retention, event planning, scholarships, and the affiliate development, in addition to his continuing roles with OAC, FMC, BMC, and CAF. He sadly died last year in 2013 at the age of 36 after a valiant 2-year battle with cancer. Donations can be made by sending checks to the Jeremy Denton Memorial Scholarship Fund. More information is available through AASA if anybody's interested in that. And again, we just want to say that we miss Jeremy deeply. He was a very dear friend, very true and dedicated young person that sadly lost his life very early to cancer. And he's survived by his wife and 2 very young sons. And so I encourage you all to do what you can if you can sponsor the memorial. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. That was a great gesture on behalf of the OAC, and it's a difficult loss for all of us. I know how much you cared for them and for Jeremy and his family. We reached out to Jeremy's wife to let her know about this recognition and memorial for Jeremy, and she was very touched. So thank you for your leadership in making that happen. So. Now I'd like to open up for any questions that you may have, and to no surprise, our friends Babcock's in the front. Scott.
Bill, you mentioned telematics several times and disruptive technology. Do you see an eventual battleground, either political or not, developing over the ownership of the data that's coming out of those systems, either between the manufacturer, vehicle owner, or the repairer? And
Yeah.
what do you think's coming?
Yeah, I think there are two things. Our view certainly is that there has been legislation about the ownership of data. And our view is that the discussion really needs to be a little bit broader. It isn't as much about who owns the data, but more importantly about the ability of independent service providers to be able to repair vehicles equipped with telematics, just like they were able to repair vehicles today, which is really the whole discussion of right to repair. Some of the challenges around that, Scott, are not just political, but technological. The challenges that the industry has is to find access into the vehicle that will allow the aftermarket to participate. And AASA and MEMA sit on the Automotive Aftermarket Telematics Task Force that was created to create an industry dialogue around these issues. And we are promoting the use, the creation of a technical solution called the Universal Vehicle Gateway. And we have promoted this technical solution with ISO, the International Standards Organization, and have proposed this in Berlin. We're also working with SAE. Today, those telematics systems are being developed perhaps in silos among the car companies, with diagnostics created in one part of the OE system, and then V2V and V2X and so forth are being operated or created on different architectures. And the goal would be to promote a single architecture for those two systems, which would then allow the creation of a universal vehicle gateway. So if we can achieve that, then I think the opportunities continue to move forward for the aftermarket. Whether that will require a political solution or not is hard to tell. But I can tell you that there is open dialogue that is going on within the industry between the aftermarket and the vehicle manufacturers, much like the dialogue that existed that created the MOU for right to repair. So the work goes on, whether that is going to require a political solution. Even if there were one about vehicle ownership, it doesn't address the challenges for this technical solution that exists. And even if motorists had ownership of the data, it doesn't necessarily mean that they'd be granted, the independent service provider would be granted the access to the vehicle to be able to repair it. So those are the two platforms that we're promoting, a universal vehicle gateway, and we'd be glad to share more information about what that is from the Automotive Aftermarket Telematics Task Force. And then within MEMA and AASA, we also have a technical working group, telematics technical working group, that is also working on these discussions. It not only involves the light vehicle aftermarket, but also the commercial and heavy-duty aftermarket as well with telematics. So I hope that
Yes.
answered your question. Yes.
You mentioned, one of the big challenges is the excess inventory. Just curious about what the plans would be to help, diffuse that. What your guys' role is specifically?
It's a great question. I hope everybody heard that. We talked about the inventory, excess inventory that's in the field, and what would be the plans and solutions perhaps to attack that. I think that we've all heard the term, and we all talk about big data. And even though there is more point-of-sale information available from channel partners than there ever has been before, I think there is opportunity, untapped opportunity, about real collaboration and dialogue about how to address right part, right place, right time. So I think channel partners focus on their inventory turn, and suppliers focus on their inventory turn, but suppliers and channel partners don't focus on the collective inventory turn. So the transparency of that, and certainly there have been examples in other industries, packaged goods, Walmart, and kind of the collaboration that has existed over the years that has created real differentiation between suppliers and Walmart is one example. And I think we can all point to the trend, if you will, the practice that every auto parts store on every street corner wants to satisfy every demand and every need of every customer that walks through the door. So we know that in any market, on any given day, there is a part on each corner of the street to service the one failure that may exist in that market. So I think if you were to fast forward into the new world, out of the medieval world, connectivity to the vehicle creates an opportunity to have visibility to prognostics when failures might occur, and with the locations that might occur, and the technologies that exist in logistics and POS might help, again, improve the inventory turns for all players in the market. You know, we talk about prognostics, and you know, the cell phone is a great example. You've got 15% battery life left. The vehicle is certainly evolving very quickly to be able to tell the motorists and perhaps their service providers that a number of parts on the vehicle have a certain amount of failure or life left in those parts. Wouldn't it be a great thing to have a note on the dash that says the battery in your vehicle is got 15% life left in it before you're stuck somewhere and your car won't start? And as that evolves, the ability for suppliers to have insight into those failures, I think, allow us to all react to the inventory that exists. And we've talked about global platforms, vehicle platforms, parts proliferation that's kind of caused this. Global platforms are actually helping the aftermarket by reducing the amount of parts proliferation. So it is declining, and perhaps over the years we'll put that in a much more manageable fashion for the industry. Granted, that will take some time, but it's heading in the right direction. So I hope that answered your question. Any others? Well, again, I thank all of you for being here and for all that you do for our industry, and particularly for our association and our members. And again, I can't thank our members enough for your support of the association, and we look forward to being with you, and I hope everyone has a great show. So thank you very much.